Have you ever watched your ex realize he just made the biggest mistake of his life? Corinne Williams did. She was standing at the altar in a wedding dress, about to say I do to Korea's most dangerous mafia boss, when her ex-fiancé walked into the ceremony, looked up, and realized the bride was his ex and the groom was his father. The phone dropped from his hands. His face went white. And Corinne? She smiled. Because in 30 seconds, she was about to become his stepmother. This is the story of how one woman turned public humiliation into the ultimate power move, how she went from being told she wasn't wife material to becoming an untouchable queen, and how her ex watched his father put a ring on the woman he threw away. Hey besties, before we dive into this beautiful story, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe and like so I can share more heart-stopping stories with you tomorrow. It is your beautiful way of supporting us. Thank you all. Love you guys. Now let's begin. The wedding venue is stunning. A private traditional Korean hanok in Seoul, modernized with floor-to-ceiling windows, surrounded by cherry blossoms. About 80 guests filled the space. All of them Ryam Sukshin's inner circle, powerful mafia families, business associates, and a few of Corinne's family who flew in from Lagos, Nigeria. Taehyun received his invitation a week ago. Simple black card with gold embossing. You are invited to the wedding of Ryam Sukshin. That was it. No mention of the bride. Taehyun had been trying to call his father all week to ask who he was marrying, but Ryam only sent one text back. Attend. Be on time. Wear a suit. So here Taehyun sat with Jiwon, his girlfriend, the woman he cheated with. He was barely paying attention, scrolling through his phone, annoyed he had to be here at all. Jiwon elbowed him. Put that away. It's starting. He glanced up casually. The doors opened. Traditional Korean music began. And Taehyun's entire world stopped. Walking down the aisle was Corinne. His ex-fiancée. In a stunning wedding dress that fused Korean hanbok with Nigerian bridal iro and buba. White silk with intricate gold embroidery, her locks styled in an elaborate updo with gold accessories, her dark skin absolutely glowing. She held a bouquet of white orchids and Nigerian roses. She was breathtaking, more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. And she was walking toward his father. Taehyun's phone clattered to the floor. The sound echoed through the quiet ceremony. People turned, annoyed. Corinne's eyes flickered to him for just a moment. She wasn't surprised he was here. She wanted him here. Then her eyes moved back to Ryam and she smiled. A real, genuine smile. Taehyun couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. Jiwon grabbed his arm, her face shocked. Is that your ex? The one you. Shut up, Taehyun hissed, but his voice cracked. At the altar, Ryam Sukshin stood in a traditional hanbok mixed with a modern black suit. Silver hair perfectly styled, sharp jaw, dangerous eyes. When Corinne reached him, he took her hand with a gentleness that seemed impossible for a man like him. The officiant began speaking in Korean. Taehyun heard nothing but roaring in his ears. Then Ryam's eyes found his son in the crowd. Their gazes locked. And Ryam smiled. Not a warm smile. The smile of a predator who'd already won. The officiant asked the question. Ryam responded clearly. I do. Then in English, looking at Corinne. You are mine now. Completely. Corinne's turn. Her voice steady and strong. I do. Then in Korean, the language she'd been learning. Saranghyo. I love you. The room sighed appreciatively. Taehyun felt sick. You may kiss the bride. Ryam cupped Corinne's face with both hands and kissed her. Not a chase ceremony kiss. Possessive. Consuming. Claiming. His hand slid to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. Corinne melted into him, gripping his suit jacket. The room erupted in applause. Taehyun sat frozen, watching his father kiss his ex-fiancée like she was the air he breathed. When they broke apart, Ryam kept Corinne close, arm wrapped around her waist. The officiant announced in Korean then English. I present to you, Mr. and Mrs. Ryam Sukshin. Mrs. Ryam Sukshin. Corinne was his stepmother. As the couple walked back down the aisle, Corinne's eyes met Taehyun's again. This time she didn't look away. This time she let him see everything. The satisfaction. The triumph. The absolute certainty that she made the right choice. When they passed his row, Ryan paused. Just for a second. Just long enough to look at his son and say in a low voice, "You had something priceless. And you threw it away. So I picked it up." Then they were gone, heading to the reception. Ji-won stared at Taehyun. "Did you know about this?" "No." His voice sounded dead. "I had no idea." Around them, guests chatted, moving toward the reception. Someone nearby said in Korean, "Did you see her? Absolutely stunning. The boss chose well. A Nigerian bride. How exotic and beautiful. He looks happier than I've seen him in years. That's his son over there, isn't it? The one who? Shoo, not here." But the whispers were everywhere. Because this wasn't just a wedding. This was a statement. This was Ryan Sukshin telling everyone, including his son, exactly what he thought of men who don't value what they have. Let me tell you how we got here. Let me tell you how Karine went from being the woman who wasn't wife material to becoming the wife of Korea's most powerful man. This story starts 6 months earlier. Karine Williams was 26 years old, a luxury brand consultant in Seoul. She'd moved from Lagos 4 years ago, bringing with her an education from the London School of Economics, fluency in 4 languages, and the kind of confidence that came from being raised by old Nigerian money. Her father was a politician, her mother ran a pharmaceutical empire, and her grandmother Nneka taught her one thing above all else. A man who doesn't value you doesn't deserve your tears. Make him regret it instead. For 2 years, Karine had been engaged to Taehyun. She met him at a business conference. He was charming, ambitious, the heir to his father's empire. She fell hard. But over those 2 years, things changed. Taehyun started making comments. About her hair. "You should straighten it more. It's very much." About her accent. "Try to sound less African when we're with my colleagues." About her clothes. "That print is too bold. Can you wear something simpler?" He was chipping away at her, piece by piece, making her smaller. Then came the cheating. Karine first suspected something 6 months before the wedding. Late nights. Distant behavior. Texts he hid. She ignored it. Convinced herself she was being paranoid. Then one night, she went to his penthouse with dinner, a surprise. She used her key. And found him in bed with Ji-won, a K-pop idol. Not just her. There were photos on his phone. Other women. Many other women. When confronted, Taehyun barely looked guilty. "It's not a big deal, Karine. Don't be so dramatic. Men have needs. You're always working." She should have left then. But she loved him. She tried to fix it. Tried to be better, more available, more understanding. It didn't matter. 3 weeks before their wedding, at a massive charity gala, Taehyun broke their engagement. Publicly. In front of Seoul's entire elite society. He stood up during the speeches, took the microphone, and said, "I need to make an announcement. Karine and I won't be getting married. She's a wonderful woman, but she's not wife material. Not for someone like me. She's too different. Too much. I need someone who fits my world." The room went silent. Every eye turned to Karine. She sat there in her gown, her natural hair in goddess locks, her dark skin burning with humiliation. Ji-won sat at another table, barely hiding her smile. Karine stood on shaking legs and walked out. No tears. Not there. Not where they could see. She went home, packed a bag, and flew to Lagos the next morning. 2 weeks in Lagos with her grandmother healed something in Karine. Nneka took one look at her granddaughter and said, "He's a fool. And you're done shrinking yourself for foolish men." Karine spent those 2 weeks remembering who she was before Taehyun. Strong. Brilliant. Valuable. But she was still hurt. Still angry. Still humiliated. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello?" A deep voice, Korean accent wrapping around English words. "Karine Williams. This is Ryan Sukshin. Taehyun's father." She froze. "I'm calling to apologize for my son's behavior. What he did was unacceptable. Would you be willing to meet with me when you return to Seoul? I'd like to discuss something." Karine returned to Seoul 3 days later. She met Ryam at a private room in his most exclusive club. She'd only met him twice before, briefly, at family dinners. He was Taehyun's father, but they seemed nothing alike. Where Taehyun was charming and weak, Ryam was intense and powerful. Where Taehyun talked constantly, Ryam's silence was heavy. He was 50 years old, silver hair at his temples, sharp features, eyes that missed nothing. Tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed. And when Karine walked into that room, those dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Sit," he said. She sat. He poured her whiskey without asking, then sat across from her. "My son is a fool. I raised him with every advantage, and he learned nothing about respect, about value, about what matters. He humiliated you. Publicly." Karine's jaw tightened. "Yes, he did." Ryam leaned forward. "I have a proposal. A business arrangement. Marry me." Karine blinked. "Excuse me? Marry me. You get citizenship, protection, access to my world, and you get to watch my son realize what he lost. I get a beautiful, intelligent wife who makes me look respectable to my international partners. And my son learns a very expensive lesson about throwing away things he can't replace." Karine stared at him. "You want me to marry you to punish your son?" "Among other reasons, yes." "This is insane." "Is it? You were humiliated. I'm offering you power. A Korean name that opens every door. A position no one can touch. And the satisfaction of watching the man who hurt you suffer." Karine's mind raced. "Why me? Why not someone else?" "Because I've met you. I've spoken with you. You're brilliant. You speak multiple languages. You understand business. You're wasted on my son. And honestly, I find you fascinating. When you walked into this room just now, you didn't flinch. Most people are afraid of me. You're not. I'm not an object you can just acquire." "I know. That's why I'm asking. You have full autonomy. Your own money, your own career, your own life. This is a partnership, not ownership." Karine studied him. "And what do you get out of this, really?" Ryam's smile was dangerous. "I like watching stupid men suffer. And my son has disappointed me for the last time. Before you say yes, hit that like button if you're Team Karine. And drop a comment telling me, would you marry your ex's father? I want to know. Now let's get back to this insane proposal." Karine had one condition. "I want a seat at your table. Not just as a wife. As a partner. I want to learn the business. I want real power, not just the appearance of it." Ryam's eyes lit up with something like respect. Done. They married 1 week later. A small, private ceremony. Just paperwork and witnesses. No celebration. Ryam slid the ring on her finger, a massive black diamond surrounded by smaller white ones, and said, "You're mine now. On paper at least. We'll see about the rest." Karine moved into his compound. A massive estate, traditional Korean architecture mixed with modern security and luxury. His staff didn't know what to make of her. A young, black, Nigerian woman as the new Mrs. Ryam. But Ryam made it clear immediately. "She speaks with my voice. You follow her orders as you would mine. Disrespect her and you answer to me." The staff bowed. "Yes, sir." The first few weeks were strange. They lived like polite roommates. Separate bedrooms. Formal dinners. Careful distance. But Ryam kept his word. He brought her to business meetings. Introduced her to his associates. Taught her about his operations, the legal and the less legal. Karine was brilliant with numbers, saw patterns others missed. She brokered a deal with a shipping company that saved them millions. Ryam looked at her differently after that. The cultural exchanges started naturally. Karine cooked Nigerian jollof rice one night. Ryam tried it, raised an eyebrow and said, "This is excellent." The next night, his chef prepared it again, perfectly. "You told him how to make it?" Karine asked. "I want you to feel at home here," Ryam said simply. Karine started learning Korean seriously. Not just pleasantries, but real fluency. Ryam would correct her pronunciation patiently. Again. "Sarangi. I love you." She repeated it. "Better," he said, and something in his eyes softened. One night, Ryam found Karine in the bathroom, deep in her hair care routine. She had products everywhere, her locks laid out, oils and creams covering the counter. He leaned against the doorframe, watching. "This takes hours," he observed. "Yes. It's worth it. Can I help?" Karine looked at him, surprised. "You want to help with my hair?" "I want to understand what's important to you." So she taught him how to oil her scalp, how to carefully retwist the roots, how to wrap everything up at night. His hands were surprisingly gentle. "You're good at this," she said. "I pay attention," he replied. Taehyun tried to visit twice in those first 2 months. Both times, security turned him away. The second time, he screamed at the gates. "Dad, you can't be serious about this. She's my ex. This is sick." Ryam walked out to face him. "You threw her away. I picked her up. You humiliated her. I'm giving her the respect you never did. You're not welcome here anymore, Taehyun. Not until you learn some goddamn respect. But she's my wife. And you will address her as such. Now leave before I have you removed." 3 months into the marriage, everything changed. Karine was working late at her office in the city. Ryam had a meeting across town. She finished up, walked to her car in the parking garage. 3 men appeared from behind vehicles. Before she could scream, one grabbed her. A cloth over her face. Chemical smell. Everything went black. She woke up in a warehouse, hands zip-tied, head pounding. The 3 men stood nearby, talking in Korean. Something about ransom, about making Ryam pay, about rival gangs. Karine's Korean was good enough now to understand. They were going to kill her either way. She tested the zip ties. Too tight. She looked around for anything to use as a weapon. Then the warehouse door exploded inward. Ryam walked through the smoke and debris like an avenging angel. 4 of his men behind him, armed. But Ryam had no gun. Just his fists. And his rage. What happened next was terrifying and mesmerizing. Ryam moved like violence itself. He broke the first man's arm with a sickening crack. Crushed the second man's face into a concrete pillar. The third tried to run. Ryam caught him, lifted him by the throat, and said something in Korean too fast for Karine to follow. Then he dropped the man and beat him until he stopped moving. The warehouse went quiet. Ryam's men secured the area. Ryam walked to Karine, blood on his knuckles, murder in his eyes that softened the moment he saw her. He cut her zip ties with a knife, gathered her into his arms, checked her for injuries. "Did they hurt you?" His voice was shaking. "I'm okay. You came." "Of course I came. You're mine. I protect what's mine." In the car ride home, Ryam held her hand so tightly it almost hurt. That was the first time Karine saw who Ryam really was. Not a businessman in a suit. A killer. A man who built his empire in blood. And she wasn't afraid. She was something else entirely. That night, back at the compound, Ryam paced his office like a caged animal. "This is my fault. I should have had more security on you. I should have." "Ryam." She stepped in front of him. "Stop." He looked at her, chest heaving. "I could have lost you. But you didn't. You saved me. I saw what you did. I saw who you are. And I'm still here. Why? Because I understand now. You're not a good man. But you're honest about what you are. And you protect what's yours. Am I yours, Karine?" She stepped closer. Yes. His control shattered. He kissed her like he was starving, like he'd been holding back for months. His hands cupped her face, slid into her locks, pulled her closer. Karine kissed him back just as desperately, her hands gripping his shirt, feeling his heart pound. He pulled back just enough to look at her. "Are you sure? I've wanted you since the day you walked into that club. Since before that, if I'm honest. Since I saw you at my son's dinner table and thought he doesn't deserve her." "I'm sure." Ryam carried her to his bedroom. They didn't make it to the bed the first time. What happened between them was intense, consuming, months of tension released all at once. Ryam was possessive, demanding, thorough. He worshipped every inch of her dark skin, whispered to her in Korean and English. "Day. Beautiful. You're perfect. Mine. Say it. I'm yours." Again. "I'm yours, Ryam." Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her back. I didn't marry you just to punish my son anymore, Ryan said quietly. Why then? Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because you're brilliant and strong, and you make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt since my wife died 12 years ago. Because I'm falling in love with you. Karine lifted her head to look at him. I'm falling in love with you too. And that terrifies me. Why? Because this was supposed to be revenge. A business deal. And now it's real. Good, Ryan said, pulling her closer. Let it be real. 2 weeks later, Ryan held a gathering of all the major Korean crime families. A show of power and alliance. Karine had been to smaller meetings, but this was different. Every dangerous man in Korea was in that room. Ryan stood with Karine at his side, his hand never leaving her waist. He spoke in Korean first, then English for the international guests. This is my wife, Karine. Not a business arrangement. Not a contract. Mine. She sits at my table. She has my protection. She speaks with my voice. Anyone who disrespects her answers to me. Personally. The room understood immediately. She was untouchable now. When they sat, Ryan kept her close, his hand possessive on her thigh. She wasn't decoration. She participated in the discussions, offered insights, made connections. By the end of the night, she'd brokered 2 deals and earned the respect of men who'd initially dismissed her. Taehyun was there, forced to attend by obligation. Watching his father with the woman he'd thrown away. Watching them touch, laugh, work together like partners. It was destroying him. 1 month later, Karine felt off. Exhausted. Nauseous. She took a test. Then another. Then 3 more. All positive. She was pregnant. She told Ryan in his office. I'm pregnant. About 6 weeks. Ryan's face went through shock, wonder, fierce protectiveness in seconds. He crossed to her, dropped to his knees, pressed his face to her stomach. You're carrying my child. You're everything now. Do you hear me? Everything. Karine's hands slid into his hair. Are you happy? Happy? He looked up at her with wet eyes. I'm terrified and thrilled, and I will burn down the world to keep you both safe. They decided to get married again. Publicly this time. A real wedding. An announcement. Ryan sent invitations to everyone in his world, including his son. No mention of the bride. Just the date and location. Karine wanted Taehyun there. Wanted him to see. Wanted him to know exactly what he'd lost. The wedding was planned for 2 months later, giving Karine time to find the perfect dress, for her family to fly in from Nigeria, for everything to be absolutely perfect. And that brings us back to the wedding. To Taehyun sitting in those chairs, phone dropping, world shattering. To Karine walking down that aisle, absolutely radiant. To Ryan kissing her like she was precious. To the reception where everything came to a head. The reception was beautiful. A mix of Korean and Nigerian food, music, decorations. At the head table, Ryan sat with Karine on his lap. Not next to him. On his lap. His arm around her waist, his lips at her ear, making her laugh. The massive diamond ring caught the light. They looked genuinely, completely happy. Taehyun approached the table, Ji-won trailing nervously behind. Dad. Karine. Can we talk? Ryan looked up slowly. About what? About this. What the hell is this? This is my wedding reception. You were invited as a guest. Act like one. You married my ex-fiancée. You mean the woman you cheated on, humiliated publicly, and told wasn't wife material? That woman? Karine spoke, her voice calm. Hello, Taehyun. Thank you for coming to our wedding. Karine, what are you doing? He's my father. I'm aware. That makes me your stepmother now. You should probably start calling me mother. Nearby guests tried to hide their reactions. This is insane. Both of you are insane. Ryan stood, gently setting Karine on her feet. He stepped close to Taehyun, his presence overwhelming. Let me make something very clear. You disrespected something precious. You made her feel small. You told her she wasn't enough. So I showed her what it's like to be treasured. I showed her what it's like to be with a man, not a boy. And now she's mine. My wife. Protected by my name and my power. You will treat her with respect or you will leave. Choose. I can't believe this. Believe it, Karine said softly. And congratulations. You're going to have a sibling soon. What? Karine's hand moved to her stomach. Not showing yet, but the gesture was clear. I'm pregnant. About 8 weeks now. We found out a few weeks ago. The world tilted for Taehyun. He stumbled backward. Ji-won pulled at his arm. We should go. We should leave. Yes, Ryam agreed. You should. As security escorted them out, Taehyun looked back one more time. Ryam had Karine in his arms again, kissing her temple, his hand protectively over her stomach. She was laughing at something he said. They looked like they were in their own world. Like Taehyun didn't exist. Like he never mattered at all. 6 months after the wedding, Karine gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Adiz, an Igbo name meaning princess, daughter of the king. Ryam held his daughter with tears streaming down his face. She's perfect. Like her mother. The compound filled with flowers, gifts, well wishes from every corner of Ryam's empire. Karine's grandmother flew in from Lagos, took one look at Ryam with the baby, and said to Karine, You chose well, granddaughter. This one has a spine. And he values you. That's rare. 1 year after the wedding, Karine and Ryam were in Lagos for business and family. They stood in Neka's garden, the same garden where Karine had cried over Taehyun's betrayal 2 years ago. Now she stood there with her husband, her daughter in her arms, a queen of an empire she helped build. Ryam wrapped his arms around them both. I married you for revenge, he said quietly. I stayed for love. You're my queen, Karine. In every way. I know, she said, leaning back against him. And you're my king. Adiz made a happy sound, reaching for her father's face. Their family, their empire, their love. Built on revenge but made real by choice. Somewhere in Seoul, Taehyun saw photos on social media. His father, his ex, their baby. Happy. Thriving. Untouchable. He'd lost everything. His inheritance, his respect, his future. All because he didn't know how to value what he had. And that's how you go from discarded to queen. That's how you take revenge and turn it into power. Karine Williams became Karine Ryam, and she never looked back. If you love this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more addictive romance stories every single week. We've got Mafia romances, forbidden love, enemies to lovers, all the drama you crave. Drop a comment and tell me Team Karine or Team Karma. Would you have done the same thing? Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they deserve better than settling for crumbs. Follow us for more stories that prove revenge is a dish best served with a ring and a kingdom. Until then, remember, know your worth, demand respect, and never settle for being an option when you deserve to be the priority. I'll see you in the next story.